My name is Emily. I am the owner of Common Sense Dog Training. I am a certified dog trainer with CCPDT. I became a dog trainer when my two dogs, this one and another one, tried to kill each other, and now I help dog owners with the same thing, aggression, reactivity, and everything in between, like firework fear. So, like and thunderstorms. So this isn't just fireworks. That was a question that we got on one of the posts. This isn't just for fireworks. This is for thunderstorms. This is for especially because we live around a military installation. This is for like the gunnery, artillery sounds. This is all, it's kind of all encompassing, but we're focusing on 4th of July because it's coming up. So I want to talk about why our dogs are afraid of fireworks. So the first one is that, sorry, I have ADHD so bad. So one, I'm reading like my outlines so I don't miss anything. And then I'm like fidgeting because I can't get comfortable. So the big one is that it's loud, right? So we hear like 20 hertz to like, I want to say it's like 20,000 hertz. A dog is like 40 hertz to 60,000 hertz. So this means that they hear on a lower and higher frequency than we do. They can hear things that we can't hear. The way that their ear is shaped with like the cone, my other one's under the table. She's got the perfect cone ears. The way that those are shaped, they draw in more sound than ours do. So not only can they hear different frequencies, but they are, I gotta put her up. She's gonna do this the whole time. Puppies, man, puppies. This is what life's like, right? Voodoo. Come on. I swear. So not only are they taking in more sound, and it's on different frequencies, their cochlea, the same thing, it's all the same structure that we have. It has more sensory cells than ours does. So everything about the dog's hearing is more. And so obviously it's loud. It doesn't happen a lot, right? So it either happens on 4th of July or New Year's Eve or when the Chiefs win. It happens very infrequently. So it's not something that your dog gets used to. Same thing like if I were to take my dog around horses. He's never been around horses. That's going to be terrifying. So it's not something that we get to work on a lot. The big thing that I want you guys to think of here is that, it's obviously fear, but our dog is in fight or flight mode. So if we have people who have new puppies and they're going to go take their dog to the fireworks show, which just so you guys know, I did that with my very first dog that I owned as an adult. I took my dog to a fireworks show. He did fine and he's fine with fireworks now, but just looking back on it, I'm like, oh my God, we were so stupid. But it puts your dog's brain into fight or flight mode. And so when our brain is in fight or flight, we are struggling to survive. So we're in survival mode. We're not thinking, it's not good for our bodies to be in that level of stress. Somebody commented on my post, marketing this workshop, and they said, I would just, hold on, we have someone else joining. They said I would just let my dog suffer through it. They didn't use those words. I'm not going to say suffer. But it happens so infrequently that they're just going to medicate and cuddle with their dogs all night. And that's fine, but we have to think about the repercussions that that's having on our dog's body and their brain. So it only happens a few times per year, but it's one, causing a health problem, and two, it's kind of indicative of a bigger problem. So we tend to see that like dogs with high anxiety or high IQ breeds are more sensitive to sound. I'm not quite sure on the science behind that with like neuroscience, but it's a thing. So we're going to talk about management for those who just want to manage and survive. We're going to talk about some safety precautions that we can take just to kind of, I have anxiety, so I think worst case scenario. So some safety techniques, and then we're going to talk about how to help rewire your dog's brain. Again, this isn't just for fireworks, this is for thunder, artillery, anything like that. If your dog's just afraid of loud noises in general, we have one person in the Dog Mom membership whose dog is afraid of the sound of the garbage truck. Like this is all the same thing. So we will get there. So as far as management goes, some tools, and I'm sure you guys have used a lot of these. And so you're going to be listening to me and you're going to go, I already know this, but there are some people who don't know this. There are some things that there just might be some things. The thunder shirts, I don't personally find that those work for my dog. I think they just kind of make her even more irritated, but they are an option. The other thing is, what'd you call them, Gabby? The happy hoods? Yeah. Okay.
Happy. Yeah.
Do they cover their eyes?
No, it's just kind of like a little scarf thing that
Okay.
goes like a headband almost around their ears.
Okay. It's one I hadn't heard. I hadn't heard of until recently. So there's also, and I'm kind of going to talk about this a little bit later, but there's also like dog specific like headphones that if you just throw them on your dog, yeah, your dog's not going to like them. But if you train your dog to like them, that's an option to help with the sound because, and I think they were actually created by a pilot initially for his dog because he wanted to take his dog flying. And so they're shaped in triangles to fit the dog's ear. They make a really good seal. And this ties into something we're going to talk about later because there was a neuroscientist who was studying the dog's brain about like, does the dog experience emotion? And they had to have the dog awake for a functional MRI. And so the sound of an MRI machine was too much. So they started by training them to wear the headphones. So we'll talk a little bit about that more at the end, but thunder shirts, the happy hoods, the ear protection, those are all options. They may or may not work. For me, I do white noise. That seems to work the most in our house. I have white noise playing, music playing. Why is everybody being so loud? Watching a movie is an option. What can happen though is that sometimes we kind of start to drown that out a little bit, or I mean, obviously like the aerial fireworks are like way too much, right? Like they rattle the windows. Something that a lot of people have said that they've tried, they're like, oh no, I've tried that, it doesn't work, a CBD oil. Obviously talk to your vet. I'm not a vet, don't take any of my advice like that. But have a conversation with your vet. The CBD oil that's sold in pet stores, I don't feel like is as effective as the dog specific brands from human stores. So I personally use Kansas Best and American Shaman for my dogs. And that plus anxiety medication plus the white noise is like, that's our coping management strategy. And medication. So that's the one I really wanted to talk about. So not everybody knows about medications. There's short-term and long-term medications. So trazodone is typically the short-term one that is prescribed. And so now is the time to go have that conversation with your vet if you haven't already, because everybody is going to flood the vet's office at the same time wanting medication for their dog. So be nice to your vet staff and do that early. More long-term drugs, if you wanted, if this like gunnery, if this was something that was happening daily that we could work on more frequently, we could work on it with more long-term drugs. So have that conversation with your vet. Also keep in mind that the standard veterinarian is not trained in psychiatric drugs. It's kind of like throw a dart at the wall and see what sticks. So if you're wanting something for anxiety or other issues that are popping up, you want to see a behavior vet specifically for behavior and medication. Some things that, can you guys hear that, or does the mic cancel it out? The mic cancels it out? Okay. Because for me, it's like all I can hear and I feel like I have to scream over it. And I hate the sound of chewing, like the chewing bones. Oh my God, drives me crazy. We got Jennifer and Wrigley joining us. Hold on, let me get everybody in here. And then we'll start talking about safety stuff. Maybe. Okay. So those are some management things, right? That's how we manage the problem. It's not fixing the problem by any means, but if we don't want to, again, it only happens once a year. Do we want to put time and effort into it, or do we not? So if you don't want to, those are management techniques. Also giving your dog like a calm space to go, making sure everything else in the house is calm, because if we're already in a heightened state of anxiety and then we add to that, Jennifer, I can't mute you. I don't know where your mute button is, but just make sure you're muted until we have questions, because I'm struggling. If we are already in an anxiety state and then everything else in the house is chaos, that's just going to make our stress bucket overflow. And so keeping in mind what else is going on in the house, and giving your dog a space to go. Franny likes to go under the covers. That's like her place. And she gets really hot, and she starts, not just from being under the covers, but she starts panting, she starts snotting from her nose. It's wonderful. So because I have anxiety and I am a paranoid person, and I grew up with a parent who was like very paranoid and like prepper status kind of parenting, safety. So that's going to be another one that we head on. If I personally, when I know fireworks are going to happen, I will start our night routine a lot earlier. So like before it gets dark, we'll do dinner early. We will let dogs out, and I will put them on a leash. One by one, I will take every single one of my dogs out to go to the bathroom on a leash, because what I don't want to happen is I don't want a firework to go off and scare the crap out of my dog and my dog run away. And so you might be thinking, well, no, it's a backyard. Dogs do crazy things when they're that scared. I've heard a story where someone's dog was inside. They thought it was safe. It was fine. A firework went off, and that dog went straight out a glass window, or like I think it was like a sliding glass door. So you never know how your dog is going to respond, and I just don't ever want anybody to be in that situation, especially because that just keeps getting worse, right? So let's say your dog escapes, and then every firework they hear after that for the entire night is going to spook them more and more into a secluded area. So the chances of you finding your dog after that are going to be very slim. So leash your dogs, make sure their collar's on tight. You want 2 fingers between the collar and their neck. Make sure that your dog has an ID tag on its collar. Some people don't collar their dogs inside. On the night of 4th of July, I would. Make sure it has an ID on it. Make sure your pet is microchipped, because if somebody does find your dog, that's going to be the first thing that's done, is scan for microchips. Again, some of you are rolling your eyes like this is common sense. Having worked in an animal shelter, I can tell you this is not common sense. The other thing, Gabby mentioned this in the Dog Mom membership hangout that we did earlier this week. Like her dog just wouldn't go to the bathroom, and that's how Franny is when we travel. She's very afraid of anything outside of the house. So one time I went and stayed in a hotel, and she literally didn't pee for 2 days. So same thing with fireworks. There's dogs that know what's going on, and they don't want to go to the bathroom. So one thing that you can look into is like a porch potty, or even kind of doing like a DIY one where you take like fake turf and you put it in like a baby pool or like a kiddie pool, so that your dog can go to the bathroom without, because if we hold our urine, we're more at risk for a UTI. We see that a lot in the shelter environment because they have to wait so long to go to the bathroom. Same thing applies for dogs as humans, right? So you can work on that ahead of time if that's something that you think is a good idea, using the porch potty. I had to use it for her when she had her TPLO surgery on her leg, because we had a deck. And so that's why I have one. And I was like, hey, that's a really good idea. I could like stick that in my basement or something, make sure they know it's there. I would take it away when you're done with the fireworks or even storms or whatever it is, so that they don't get used to going to the bathroom in that spot, but that's an option. Trying to think of anything else safety related. I think that's it. Before we get into rewiring your dog's brain, I want to pause for a second and ask if anybody has any questions about anything we've covered so far. I don't think so. Okay, if something pops up and you don't want to interrupt, you can type it in the chat, and then we'll do another Q&A at the end. So now we're into the training part of this. So we're going to work at rewiring your dog's brain. So your dog is clearly afraid of something, and what I'm going to tell you is going to sound stupid simple. Like, you're going to hear this and you're going to be like, this is so easy, this is dumb, why did I sign up for this workshop? That's why my business is called Common Sense, because I try to break everything down as simple as possible. The problem is that it is simple, but because people think it's so easy and so simple and not worth the time, they don't do it consistently. And so it's the consistency that makes it stick. We're going to talk about counter conditioning and desensitization. So these two concepts are a little different. Counter conditioning is when we add food to a situation to get a behavior to occur. Desensitization does not include food, and it's a low level exposure to whatever the trigger is, and then it builds over time. We can combine those two, and that's kind of what we've been talking about in the Dog Mom membership with that training. That's combining low level stimulation with food. in counter conditioning. So it's kind of both things going on. So an example of counter conditioning with fireworks or thunder or artillery would be every time our dog hears a loud sound, firework, whatever it is, you would mark and reward. So I'm going to stop and talk about marking for a second because I realized I did not talk about that. So the concept of marking is typically clicker training. Is normally what we're doing, but you can use a verbal mark. You don't have to use a clicker necessarily. We use a clicker because it's precise every single time. It can't change its tone when it gets mad or upset or frustrated. Your voice can. And so that's why this is faster and it works better. But you can use a verbal marker like yes or good, anything like that. So to teach your dog what it means, for about 30 repetitions, you mark reward. You don't ask your dog to do anything. You're just teaching them that the click means food. And what that starts to teach your dog is that the click means there's an opportunity to earn food. And so you'll start seeing your dog work for the click. Like, what did I do just now to get that? So that's a crash course in clicker training. So if we were going to counter condition our dog to loud sounds, every time we heard that sound, we would click treat. And so that tells the dog that instead of the boom meaning bad things, the boom means food, because you can't be pissed off when you're eating. I don't know about you guys, but it just doesn't happen in my world. So now you might have to start with tastier food. So it might, like, for demonstration purposes today, if I was going to do this with her, I just had dry dog food because I know that the sounds I'm going to make are very low level. They're not crazy. But if I was going to work on something like actual fireworks outside or loud recordings of fireworks, I would use something a little bit more tastier, reinforcing, like cut up hot dogs or plain like cooked chicken, something like that. I was talking with my mom about this. I hate admitting that my mom has good ideas, but I was talking to my mom about this and she was like, you could use the popper things that you throw at the ground, those like white things. You remember those? She's like, you could use those and then you could click and treat the dog. And I was like, yeah, like that's a solid idea till the dog goes to get the fragments of that. And then I don't want to be responsible, but at a distance, that's a good idea. Like if you had a friend, like, 10 feet away at first, pop one of those, click and treat your dog. I think that's a really good idea to get your dog used to loud sounds. The main one that I'm going to suggest using is audio recordings of fireworks. So since when do you whine in a crate? We don't do this. Low level volume. So you can go on YouTube and you can type in firework sounds. If you blare them at the max level they go from straight off the bat, you're not going to see a great response. If we start very low level, we want to start so low. Again, dogs hear on a different frequency, hear more, have different sensory in their ear. We want to start so low, we might not even be able to hear it. They will. But we want their body language to stay very calm and neutral. We don't want to see any stress signals. So stress signals in a dog: panting, yawning, lip licking. I think you guys probably, as dog owners, know the big ones, which are like ears back, head down, those kind of things. There's some more obvious ones, but a lot of people don't know about the yawning and the lip licking. And panting without exercise can mean either stress or pain. So we're going to play the sounds on low volume. We're going to watch our dog to make sure they are under threshold and they're not overstimulated and overwhelmed. And then every time you hear a firework, you can click and treat them. And that's kind of combining the two. So I got ahead of myself here. Desensitization is if we were to just play the sound at low level, watch our dog's body language, and then we gradually up the volume. As long as the dog is staying under threshold and is staying calm and neutral, you can up the volume a little bit. If you add the click and treat to that, we're combining the two. So we're counter conditioning and desensitizing at the same time. Going back to what we talked about with the MRI machine. So this dog, I can't remember this book. I'm going to look it up because I'm recommending it to everybody right now. It's called How Dogs Love Us. And so this neuroscientist wanted to know something about dogs' emotions. I don't even know what the actual scientific theory was here because I'm getting so caught up in the nuances of it. But they wanted to be the first people to take a functional MRI of a dog, which means the dog cannot be sedated, because they want to see what's actually firing in the dog's brain. And so they had to train for a lot of things. The dog had to sit on a chin rest perfectly still for like 30, 60 seconds at a time. Like they could not blink. I mean, it was very specific. And the MRI noise was a big one. And when you switch scans, the MRI makes a clunkier sound. And so if they can do that, then you can do this. An MRI machine and fireworks happen about the same frequency, right? Like once never is when that happens. So they just played low level. And I was actually listening to a chapter of this book today, and they said that the dogs got so used to the recorded sound of the MRI that they actually just played it during the MRI to drown out the actual sound of the MRI. And so that's a theory with the fireworks too. So if your dogs get used to the recording of firework sounds, you can play that during 4th of July, especially because we're not going to make a ton of progress in 30 days, right? So 4th of July is like next month. I want to make sure everybody has realistic expectations here. You're going to improve by like 10, 15% probably, but because it is so infrequent, because windows rattle, that's one thing that we can't replicate, right? So, I mean, you could have somebody walk up and like beat the window at the same time that a firework goes off or something, or like bang pans together or something. But it's not going to be 100% by the 4th of July. So the other thing with thunderstorms is like the barometric pressure changes. And so that's something that we will never be able to replicate. So when people are on TikTok saying, oh, your dog's afraid of thunderstorms, just play low sounds of thunderstorms. Like, yeah, it's a theory and it'll improve by like a little bit, 20%, but there's going to be some things that you just can't replicate. The flashing lights is one of them. So curtains would be a management strategy so that your dogs can't see the flashing lights, or you could start using flashing lights outside, like maybe like a Christmas light that points to the house or something. We want to be a little bit careful with lights. Like we don't want to use laser pointers with dogs because it can cause obsessive compulsive disorder. I think it's called like laser pointer syndrome or something. So we don't want to use laser pointers with dogs, and we want to watch what type of lights that we use. But those are just it's not just the sound of fireworks. That's the majority of it because your dog's ears are very sensitive, but it's also the sound, the smell. Like if you're in a neighborhood where you've got that a lot, like you walk outside and you're hit with that smell. The dog's olfactory bulb in their brain where they process scent is like, what is it, like 20% of their brain? 40, I can't remember. It's like I think ours is 20% and theirs is 40%. I'm really bad with numbers, but it's exponentially bigger than ours because that's how they just take everything in through their scent. So there's smell, there's sounds, there's lights, there's feelings, there's vibration. So there's a lot more to that. And if we were to break it down, ideally, I would love to see you guys work on this between now and New Year's Eve, because there's going to be fireworks on New Year's Eve, and you're going to make so much more progress in 6 months than you will in 1 month. Because then you can work on not just the sound, but different vibrations, the lights, things like that. I don't know how you're going to replicate the smell, but yeah. So my training philosophy is pick one thing to work on for 7 days. So if you're rolling your eyes watching this and you're like, oh, a month, whatever, or this is stupid, I'd like you to just commit to trying it for 7 days and then see what happens. Especially because I'm guessing that a lot of you whose dogs are sensitive to fireworks are sensitive to other things like high winds and loud noises. Gabby can just put her hand down on the desk and her dog starts barking, and so we've had to work on that with her. What was I going to say? I was going to say something. Same thing with artillery. So we can't, like, that shakes the whole house, right? Like we can't really replicate that. You could like slam a door, I guess, and try to replicate it, but I I had another thought and it's going to come back to me, but I'm going to pause here and ask if anyone has any questions about, or if I need to go more in depth or anything like that. Somebody have a question, please. If I were to get a puppy, I would start this from day one if I lived in an area where fireworks were a thing. So where I grew up, aerial fireworks are not allowed. So moving to Kansas was like, what is this? It sounds like a war zone. Bro. It sounds like a war zone here because there was like risk of fires in California and you can't have those. So if I were to, if I lived in this area and I got a puppy, I would start the exposure to that pretty early on. If I was someone who liked to have social events for holidays and I knew that that was going to be a priority, I would start socializing my puppy, not socializing, but exposing my puppy to fireworks early on, the sounds of that kind of thing. Also keeping in mind that you can damage a dog's hearing. So if you do decide to take your dog to a fireworks show, maybe think about that before you do it. So I was trying to find the picture. Somewhere there's a picture of me. What are you doing? Me and my ex-husband, we had tie-dyed shirts on that we had made for 4th of July, and the dog in the bed of the truck, and the dog had a tie-dye bandana on too, and I was just like, this is great. My dog's at a fireworks show. He was like 6 months old, not even 3 months old. Like, he should not have been there at all. And now I have a 10-month-old puppy, and I have no idea how she's going to respond. And quite frankly, it has not been a priority for me to train her. So I'm going to be committing to the next 30 days, at least once a day, trying some desensitization work with her. Because I kind of want to do this alongside you guys and, prove that it will work. You will have an improvement. You will see a small improvement. Now, between now and New Year's Eve, heck yeah, you're going to see a ton of improvement. Also, just working with your dog in this way is going to improve their confidence with things. It's going to improve your bond. You think you're already bonded with your dog, but wait till you start speaking their language and teaching them in the way that they like to learn. You're going to bond even more so. So, questions. Anybody have any questions? I would love a question. For those that are watching the replay of this, if you have a question, we have a free Facebook group that you can post your question in and I will answer it. If you're not a part of that Facebook group and you're here today, you need to be a part of that Facebook group because that's where we post everything first before we go live with it. And then like we have some group classes coming up and I'm gonna like announce those in the group first before we do public. So we're gonna have group classes in Abilene, Junction City, and online. And yeah, so post your questions there. I think everybody's in that group except for Jesse and Angel and Cora. So I will send those links to you guys too. No questions? I covered everything. I feel like I kind of missed something. Okay. The one thing I do want to mention too is back to safety techniques. And this is just something I've been kind of thinking about more and more after I've heard somebody say it. When you think about how many times a day you open the door to your house, that's how many times you can possibly have your dog escape. And so since hearing somebody put it in that perspective, I started putting like a little like X pin around my front patio area so that even if my dogs were to push past me, which they shouldn't because they've been taught impulse control and they know to wait before going out of a door, but if a firework were to go off and it startled them enough to break their stay and they bolted out the door, there's a second barrier there. Again, I'm just have anxiety and overthink everything, but it's there. If anybody tries the throwing the poppet thing on the ground, let me know. I'd be curious to see if that one works. Just don't let your dog eat it afterwards because that would be bad. If no one has any questions, I just honestly thought this was going to take so much longer. Does anybody need a demonstration of the counter conditioning? No, I might, just in case somebody watching needs to see it. So I don't even know which. Oh, Franny, see her ears? Perfect shape of, perfect explanation of the shape. Yeah, satellite dishes. So if I were to make a noise like bang on the table, yes. Immediately afterwards, yes. Even if, like, let's say you have a very timid dog who, you know, like today, this one, Cruella, my mom, we went to my mom's house. My mom set her keys down on the counter and she jumped. And so even if you just have a jumpy dog like that, like you can practice those things every time you throw something down or every time you startle. Or even if your dog hears something that scares them, you can mark and reward it right then and there to start building up that association, that I don't have to be scared, and it doesn't have to mean I have to go into survival mode. It can mean that I get to eat really good food. Okay. Any other questions? Nothing? Any other questions? Like there were questions to begin with. Jennifer, I'm going to put you on the spot. How's Wrigley doing with everything? Maybe. There we go.
Not too bad. Sorry, I couldn't figure out where my mute button was.
He's doing okay with
He's
everything. I
getting
saw the
there.
video of the ball and the hurting and everything. That was good.
Yeah, his back leg still shakes when he's doing that, and I can't figure out if that's a nervous thing or a muscle thing or what. But
Interesting.
he's he's fine. If I get his attention, it stops shaking. But when he's going after the ball, if he stops, his back leg shakes.
Weird.
But he's been doing well. We've had a couple good like walks where we've walked past people and he does okay, and then we'll walk past somebody else and he'll go crazy. So not seeing a lot of consistency right now.
Okay. Well, a good day is better than no good days.
That's right. He's doing really well with his muzzle training, so that's good.
Good. Okay. If no one has questions, we'll go ahead and end it there. If you have questions, post them in the Facebook group. If you guys decide, oh, Jesse, do you have a question?
Yes. So we were talking yesterday, we were talking about my puppy and that she might possibly be entering like her 6 month fear period.
Yep.
So when you talk about like the examples of like banging on a desk or something, is that still good to do for her?
As
Or
long
could
as
I be like enforcing something bad?
no, so as long as you're making the sounds and giving her a treat,
Okay.
we're creating that good association with what she's afraid of. So even let's say somebody comes over or something and I don't even know, this is a terrible example, but let's say like they crouch down to go pet the dog and the dog flinches, like you still want a reward because
Okay.
again, you can't be upset when you're eating. And so a lot of people ask that with like reactivity cases. So if the dog is barking and barking and barking, but we're reinforcing, aren't we reinforcing the aggression? No, that's not
Mhm.
true because we can't be mad when we're eating. It's just not how the brain
Okay.
works. And I can dig into that for you, the neuroscience behind that, because that's the rabbit hole I'm going down right now. But yeah, I would expose her to a lot of sounds and we talk about this in the membership, like different confidence building techniques, like, and this would be good for everybody too, just to get used to sounds. And like I said, dogs who have sensitivity to loud noises typically have sensitivity to a lot of different noises, not just fireworks or thunderstorms. So if you take like an empty box or like a low box, crinkle up some paper, toilet
I've
paper
seen that.
tubes, stuff like that, sprinkle some really good treats in there and let your dog kind of move around those things. Not only is it enrichment for them because it's a puzzle, but it's also making them make the noise and then they're reinforcing themselves with the food. And then there's different levels to that where you can add like plastic bottles, cans, things. Obviously, we don't want the cans to cut the dog, but things that are more noisy. Giving your dog control of making those sounds, and then the food is there to reinforce that. So yeah, fear stages. So if your puppy is between the age of 6 and 14 months, they are in their second fear stage, and this means that that is when the brain is actively wiring itself for development. And so that's why I think my dog that I took to the fireworks show was not affected, because he was like probably 3-4 months. Let's see, March, April, May, June, July. He was 4 months, so he was out of the first stage and in between the next one. But if you were actively in a fear stage and you had fireworks go off, like my dog, Voodoo, she's in a fear stage right now. She's 10 months old, so we'll see how this goes. Let's see, Cora said, my dog Riker does not like loud noises, and when he hears them, he darts under the bed, or if he is in the bed, he gets under the covers under me. He is 13 weeks. Yep. So that first fear stage is 8 to 12. I think it's 8 to 12 weeks. So you're probably right there at that. You'll see a little bit more confidence 3-4 months, and then you'll hit another one at 6 months. And Cora, I can send you a whole thing on fear stages. I'll write this down so I don't forget. I have a video and a PDF that go over it, so that way you can be prepared. Jesse, do you want that too? No, I was supposed to send that to you. Hold on. See, this is what
That's
happens
okay.
when I don't write things down. I forget. And if anybody's watching the replay and wants that stuff, just let me know in the Facebook group. But yeah, any exposure that you can do with a positive association is good. And that's what I was telling Jesse yesterday when we talked on the phone. Like with puppies specifically, if we're going to expose them to something, we want it to be a good experience. But it should apply to all dogs, right? Like if you're going to expose them to fireworks, you better make dang good sure that it's going to be a good experience for them. Because dogs' brains are very good at making associations. Any other questions? Is everybody's dog microchipped? Okay, good. All right. Not yet. All right, Cora, you have 30 days. Go get your puppy microchipped. We will microchip info. I want to say I just saw a clinic thing pop up for that, but I want to look at it and let you know. Do that. Get your IDs, tags on. I'm probably going to put, I bought is it FI collar? I think that's how you say it. I always say fee collar because I'm dumb, but I bought a FI collar for Voodoo to track her activity. And I'm like, nope, that's going on 4th of July, because if you get out, you're going to go for days. And you can wait until you get them fixed to get them chipped, if that's what you want to do. I personally would microchip my dog before because, again, I'm just a paranoid person. It is a pretty large needle, I'm not going to lie, but my dog, she didn't even feel it. I mean, I've had 2 microchip dogs, and it's a big-ass needle, but she didn't yelp or anything. So that's why they recommend waiting until the dog's under, because you're already there and they're not going to feel it. But I was kind of shocked because she's kind of a pansy. But at least at minimum, have a dog tag on. Make sure. But see, the problem with that is if your dog breaks out of their collar, or I don't know, if somebody finds your dog and takes the collar off. The other day, somebody found a dog with a muzzle on and decided to take the muzzle off, like it was just there for fun. So you never know what people are going to do. Okay. We're going to end it there, and I'm going to send links later this afternoon or later this evening, probably tomorrow if I'm being real. And then the recording will be up and emailed out tomorrow as well. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you guys later.